Job Fair is the 13th episode of the 4th season of The Office. This is directed by Tucker Gates, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a good episode, it's enjoyable, there's nothing about it that I didn't like. There was one moment, or I guess two moments, when combined together that were quite interesting. Other than that, I don't have a tremendous amount of notes, but that's not necessarily a reflection on my enjoyment, just that there wasn't a lot that I thought was worthy of note. So we have three parts of the narrative. One kind of involving Dwight and Angela, one Jim, Andy and Kevin, and one Pam, Oscar, Michael and Darryl. And this is because Pam, Oscar, Michael and Darryl are going to a high school for the jobs fair to try and recruit interns. It just so happens that this is Pam's former high school, which I thought was a nice touch. They didn't have to do that, but it gave us something a little bit extra as Pam had a couple of comments about her high school, and I thought that was just a nice little addition. And it's not going very well. Pam is talking with one potential recruit, and Michael's not very nice. Michael is looking for the best of the best. And if you're not perfect in Michael's eyes, you're not worthy of being an intern. And he said a few unkind things, which wasn't great to see. And then he tries to rope him back in. This is Justin, played by Trevor Einhorn, and he tries to rope him back in when, at the end of the jobs fair, nobody wants to go and work at Dunder Mifflin. And this is despite the fact that he told Pam to bring only one sheet of paper, because that's all it would take to make a difference. And even that one sheet of paper was not enough. And I have to say, kind of on Pam there, because she should know by now that if Michael asks for something stupid to be done, it's probably not going to go according to plan. So she probably should have taken additional sheets of paper. And if they didn't need them, Michael never would have found out. So that one's on Pam, but she did end up having to go back to the office. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. Jim, and I hate this, Jim is on probation. Rainn put Jim on probation. And I mentioned in the previous episode, I think it was the previous episode, where Rainn had mentioned that he was disappointed in Jim's work or lack thereof, and I was really irritated by that. But Jim does kind of admit in this episode that he doesn't necessarily try. So he's going to try, and he's actually on the golf course meeting a client. He's there with Andy and Kevin, and the scenes are quite nice. It's nice to spend some time outdoors. I like the costumes. I think it's great to see the characters in their out-of-office, more casual attire. I think that's quite nice. And by the end of it, Jim got the client with some force. If I remember, he said he stood in front of the client's car, so maybe not the most ethical measures, but he got the client, so he's quite happy. And then we come to Dwight and Angela, and this was so awkward. Part of me wishes they'd maybe done a little bit more with this, but I don't know what I wanted to see. Because Michael's not around, everybody else leaves. And even Michael isn't that bothered about that, as he says, he's not there, so why should everybody else be? And that's everybody excluding Dwight and Angela. And occasionally we just cut back to the office and we see them working several desks apart in silence, and then Dwight sneezes and Angela says bless you, which was quite nice, and then they leave. And I think Dwight held the door open for Angela and she said thank you, if I'm remembering that correctly, and that's almost all we get with that. And it was so awkward. It was fun, I liked it, but I wanted something more, and it made me wonder. And I don't have an answer for this. I don't know if we'll ever find out or if we just have to imagine. But have they ever actually had a proper sit-down conversation to discuss the end of their relationship? Not that I'm saying they should have a conversation to salvage their relationship, because what Dwight did was unforgivable. But I feel like Angela just ended things. And as far as I know, they never had a grown-up, mature conversation to, I guess, give them some closure and tie up loose ends. And maybe they did, and we just have to assume that they did, or maybe we'll find out at some point. But that scene, I wanted something. I didn't want them necessarily to get back together there and then. I hope it happens eventually, but please don't tell me. I like the element of surprise with this, but I really wanted something. But I guess the fact that they're being civil is good. Angela being civil, much to her credit, because again, after what Dwight did, I would struggle to be civil. I know some time has passed, but still. We then have Pam going back to the office while it's just Dwight and Angela. She goes back to get another single sheet of paper, which again she seemed to do. She seems to only get one, which seems like not a great move. And then clearly she's fed up with her job and with these ridiculous tasks. It's clearly not very fulfilling. And at the end of the episode, she's actually at a job fair and she's talking with this individual about graphic design, and initially it seems like she'd be a good candidate, but then she needs experience with this software and that software, and he tells her there are some really good adult courses, look at New York and Philadelphia, and she leaves, and I don't think she'll do anything with that. But this is interesting because in, I think, the previous scene, or maybe the scene before that, Michael was talking to the camera about Jim, because Jim had signed the client, and he was saying that Jim could do anything, but he chooses to work at Dunder Mifflin. And then having the scene at the end with Pam realizing that if she wants to achieve her dreams, she needs to make big changes as well. I mean, there might be courses in Scranton or around about, but certainly the suggestion there was that if she wants to have that kind of career and do courses that could really benefit her, she might need to look further afield. And it seems like Jim, I don't think he's choosing to stay at Dunder Mifflin. I think he's choosing not to leave. I think there's a difference, and I think he's not looking ahead yet. And we've had hints at this already in previous episodes where we get a suggestion that this isn't fulfilling for him, which may seem like an obvious thing to say, and that he wants something different. Maybe he doesn't know what that is, or maybe he's too scared to make the next move. And then we see this with Pam, with her looking at her next move, but it's a big change. I don't believe she would immediately make the change either, and it's just kind of suggesting that both of them could go on to really great things if they took the plunge. And they could go on to great things together. I don't want this to happen. I really don't want it to happen. But Jim, deciding what he wants to do with his career, could move to a bigger city, and Pam could go with him and take on new opportunities with her art. And I don't want them to do that because I want them to stay at Dunder Mifflin. But if they actually had a conversation about this, they could both realise that together they could go on to fulfil their dreams, whatever they may be. So I thought that was quite interesting. The rest of the episode, fine, entertaining, pretty decent. Not a favourite, but I would never skip it. I don't know if I have any personal highlights. Well, I quite liked seeing the characters in their out-of-office attire, particularly Kevin, Andy, and Jim. Of course I liked Dwight and Angela, but I wish there was something else there, but I don't know what. I don't know what I was looking for, but I just wanted a little something. But aside from that, really good episode, really thoroughly enjoyed it. Job fair was a nice change of pace, different locations, some interesting food for thought with Jim and Pam, and ultimately, it's a decent episode of The Office.